Hello everyone and welcome back to another video where today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to do a response. Now I haven't done one of these in a very long time, but today I thought it would make for an interesting conversation because this is an idea I've actually seen permeate discourse for a little bit of a while and I want to give my thoughts on it. It comes from The Rest is Entertainment, which if you don't know is a pretty big podcast in the UK which discusses, well, all things entertainment, hosted by Richard Osman, who is television personality and presenter, as well as his co-host, Marina Hyde. So yeah, these are, industry figures, they aren't just random people, they are industry figures, but they have given their opinion as to why this Disney deal fell through and why this era of Doctor Who didn't really succeed in the way that the BBC and Disney wanted it to, and I just can't agree with it, and I wanted to kind of explore this take because it's something I've been seeing a lot of for a while, and I just kind of wanted to defend actually the lead, or the ex-lead in this case, Ncuti Gatwa, because I've been seeing a lot of the blame for this era laid at his feet, and I just don't think it's fair. So we're going to get right into it. Subscribe if you're new. It's important to say that they do preface this by saying that this is their opinion. I'm just expressing why I personally disagree with that opinion, and why I think it's actually kind of important to, defend the lead a bit, defend Ncuti a bit, because I really don't think that, this era not succeeding was really down to him particularly, to be honest. But yeah, let's just dive right into this. I want to make clear as well, nothing personal to any of the people on this podcast or anyone who works on this podcast. I just saw this take and I felt the need to say something about it because this was also reiterated in the Deadline article from some days ago. And I kind of called it out there, but I wanted to do a video just kind of exploring this take and why I just don't really agree with it.
I personally, and this is nothing from anyone on the show, but I think they had a problem with the casting of the lead character. I think Ncuti Gatwa, I am told he didn't particularly love doing it. And it's not for everyone, that role. And you are so much more than the lead in a particular drama. When it came back, and under Russell T Davies, there was Christopher Eccleston, he did it for one season, and then it clearly wasn't for him either. David Tennant revolution, bought it. He grew up.
It's fair to say it was for him.
Yeah, it was for him, but he was a Doctor Who obsessive. So was Peter Capaldi, who came next but one, and they fully understood what the nature of that role is. You're not just the lead in that thing. You are an ambassador. You do all sorts of other things, and it all feeds back. But it's a really, it sort of occupies a role in the life of the nation to some degree. Matt Smith, who was so young, who is absolutely one of the most amazing Doctor Who's of all time. I think he's one of the most amazing doctors of all time. I think he's incredible, and it's extraordinary that he played it with such sensitivity, and he was both old and young at the same time. He did it amazingly, but he also understood that you're a form of ambassador. I didn't get that at all from Ncuti Gatwa, at all. I think he had other projects. He wasn't that committed to that thing. I definitely think that the Americans thought that he wasn't necessarily 100% available there to be a kind of...
He's definitely in demand for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's done lots of different things, and he's done theatre, he's done, 2 plays and whatever in the time of all of that. He said, I'm getting old, I'm 33. Okay. As I say, it's a failure to cast someone who fully understood the full implications and weight and responsibilities of the role. And also, actually, I think if you are the lead in a big American TV show, and this for this purpose is both, there are certain things that might be expected of your time, and perhaps that didn't occur.
So I wanted to play the full context for that, so it didn't look like I was cutting anything out. Hopefully, The Rest is Entertainment, hello, don't copyright claim me for playing the whole segment on her reasoning as to why this era struggled. Basically, the core premise of this argument is that Ncuti Gatwa wasn't enough of an ambassador for the role. He didn't fully embrace it in the way that former Doctors have. What I will say in agreement with her is I agree with her assessment of Matt Smith. I think Matt Smith's fantastic. I love the combination of old and young. So I will say I agree with her on that. On Ncuti, though, I can't help but disagree, and I'm going to tell you a few reasons why. One of the things she says here is that, I think Ncuti Gatwa had other projects, so, he didn't commit fully to Doctor Who or whatever. But here's the thing about that. They would have known Ncuti Gatwa's scheduling when they cast him, right? So if the team knew that there wasn't going to be as much time for that stuff, they should have accommodated for that. And obviously they did in some ways, because we had quite a few Dr. Light episodes. But ultimately, if Ncuti Gatwa was clear that I have other work and they still cast him, I don't really know how you can blame him for that. Additionally, I've said this before, and I made this point when Deadline made this argument, but this idea that Ncuti didn't do much of the extra stuff, my argument for that was he really ever given the opportunity to? Like, obviously, he only had 2 series in the role, and then he was gone. But as I've said before, the only thing I remember him getting was Blue Peter, and that was kind of it. Everything else was kind of just chat shows and talk show interviews on like The One Show or Graham Norton or whatever. There wasn't any Children in Need sketches, there wasn't any comic relief sketches, there wasn't any of that stuff that we kind of associate with playing the Doctor. And I think this idea that like he didn't enjoy the role, I also just don't fully agree with. I think it's probably fair to say that there were probably some frustrations, as there always are with any actors who are, you know, in the role of the Doctor especially, which is a very demanding role. But I have to say that he was nothing but nice and had all the time in the world for fans on the occasions that I've met him. When he was filming in public, you know, he would always stop and he would always spend the time. And I just feel that what often happens when an era of Doctor Who doesn't succeed is that the blame gets laid often at whoever's playing the lead role. I remember the BBC article from many years ago saying that Peter Capaldi wasn't fully embraced by audiences. You know, obviously, in that one BBC drama where they made a joke about Doctor Who that Sacha Dhawan was in, I Know Jodie Whittaker wasn't for everyone. And obviously in this case, they're saying that, you know, Ncuti didn't embrace the role. And it kind of feels like this thing of just, well, let's just blame it all on the lead, when I think most of the issues people will agree on in this era didn't come from Gatwa. Do you know what I mean? And this is coming from someone who actually quite liked elements of this new era, this Russell T Davies 2 Disney era, whatever you want to call it. But I think to say that the reason why this didn't work is Ncuti not embracing the role, I'm sorry, I don't agree. Even if you want to argue that his Doctor wasn't for you, he played what was written for him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he can't, you know, obviously each actor does put their own twist and their own spin on the Doctor as a character, but the writing is what it is. He's given what he's given and he performs it. It's the same reason why I don't really blame Jodie for, you know, some of the issues with the Chibnall era either. Obviously, you can criticize the performance of an actor, but I think to say that the main reason why this era didn't work was a poor casting choice because Gatwa didn't embrace it, I just don't agree. Also, the kind of mocking of the he was 33 years old, he was getting old stuff. I mean, I think that's something, not that he was told to say, but we all know deep down that that's not the real reason. And I think Gatwa knows that as well, but that's been the kind of accepted reasoning that, you know, he's probably come to with the BBC and stuff. In the same way that he says to everyone, oh, it was always the plan to do this number of seasons, even though we have multiple pieces of evidence to indicate that that wasn't the case, you know? We covered it just yesterday with Bonnie Langford, or day before yesterday, with Bonnie Langford and Carol Ann Ford talking about the original ending to season 2. And I just feel that, like, it's not really very fair to lay all the blame at the lead actor when I think the problems did go deeper than that. And I'm not even saying that they're all Russell T Davies either, but like, I think to just blame it all on the actor is incredibly short-sighted. And I think it negates the fact that they are only one cog in a much larger machine. Again, I think you can have whatever opinion on Ncuti Gatwa's performance that you want, and that's completely fair enough. But again, to blame him for having a busy schedule, that's something they would have known when they cast him. I don't know. I don't think it's a fair point against him, really. And as I've said before, he fully embraced fans 100% whenever I've met him on the various occasions. Not just at conventions either, where, you know, he is getting paid to do that, but just when he's filming, he would always take the time out. He was always incredibly gracious with everybody. And I don't know, I just don't really agree that, like, the issue was he was miscast. I don't really agree. I think there's many things you could diagnose as the reason for this era not, you know, doing well. I've touched on some of them in the past. I've touched on some of them maybe in this video. But I think to say, oh, it's just because the lead actor didn't embrace it, I don't agree. Like, yeah, sure, he wasn't a mega fan in the same way that, you know, David Tennant or Peter Capaldi were. But he did do his research for the role. I remember seeing, Instagram stories of him with all his Doctor Who DVDs researching this part, and I can't help but feel that it's eerily similar to the discourse surrounding Eccleston. When Eccleston left, even in this podcast, they say here, it clearly wasn't for Eccleston either, whereas if you look into the reasons as to why Eccleston left, they go a lot deeper than, it just wasn't for him. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's very easy just to lay the blame at the lead actor and not acknowledge anything else. And I don't think it's fair on him. And I think it's important that as a fan base, we defend the actors when I think that they're getting too much flack. And we've seen this with Minnie Gibson as well. She was told, don't speak out with regards to rumours of you being fired because it will ruin the surprise. It will ruin, spoilers, leaks, whatever. I don't think that's the right approach. I think you should stand up for your actors. I think you should stand up for your cast. And I think this is yet another example of the cast taking the fall for something that ultimately I don't believe is their fault. That's my opinion on it. And I wanted to defend him here because, again, no disrespect to these guys. They're just analysing it from their own perspective. I just don't think it's accurate, in my opinion. Maybe you guys do. And I know that some people have said before that, he did do Instagram stories where, he would be talking about his G-spot or whatever and stuff like that. But you got to bear in mind as well, no one's going to be perfect at this job 100% of the time. It's not as if there's a, handbook, a guide on how to play the Doctor and how to embody that character. I agree that being the Doctor is more than just an acting job. It is also, you are an ambassador, I do agree. But I don't think Gatwa was a bad one, particularly. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks all for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.